We continue on now to our Friday segment, Movie Spotlight, discussing the latest releases in Korean cinemas and online. And joining us this week are our film critics, back in the studio after basking in the Busan sunshine last week. First, we have to my right, Jason Bechervaise. Jason, hello.
Hello, Jenga. Great to be back here.
Yes, it's good to see you back. And to my left, we have Darcy Paquet as well. Darcy, hello. It's good to see you too.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Well, of course, the reason you were in Busan was because of the Busan International Film Festival, as we covered last week. We're going to discuss some of the highlights that you both enjoyed there. But first, we have a new release to cover. So let's get into that first. It's a comedy drama called Daemuga in both English and Korean. It's about the practice of shamanism in Korea. And it's by debut director Lee Han-jong. Darcy, can you start us off? Can you tell us more about this film?
Yeah, it's an interesting film. I mean, slightly odd. It's about three shamans, one in his 20s, one in his 30s, one in his 40s, plus a gangster, and then this shady, like 50 billion won real estate redevelopment scheme. The film's sort of divided up into three parts, and each part is centered around one of these shamans. So one is a man in his 20s, played by Yu Gyung-soo, who enrolls in this kind of shaman academy, like a hagwon, in order to learn how to do it. It's one of the film's kind of creative touches. I'm not sure if a shaman hagwon exists in real life. And he's doing it because he's hoping to get enough money to pay off his debts, because he's heavily in debt. But he doesn't really show any talent for it. And then when a woman hires him to contact her deceased father, in the midst of this ritual, something goes wrong and he disappears. So then there's a shaman in his 30s, based in the Gangnam area, played by Yang Hyun-min. And he's very successful. He makes a lot of money. He's very popular with his clients. But then the mother of this missing shaman comes to him, and he becomes curious and starts to look to see what might have happened to him, and then starts to uncover all these, other things that are going on. And then there's a third shaman played by Park Sung-eun in his 40s, who's formerly quite powerful and influential in his community, although he's finding that he doesn't have quite the abilities that he once had, and he is kind of aligned with this gangster character, or at least has struck some kind of a deal with him. And so there are a huge number of side plots and flashbacks and everything else, but basically all these three characters are kind of destined to come together in the end.
Okay, so Jason, shamanism is an interesting aspect of Korean culture. It still very much exists today. There are lots of people who seek out shamans to try and learn about their future and find answers to their dilemmas. And the shamans do this, of course, by communicating with the dead, supposedly. Even the current president has been embroiled in some alleged shamanism scandals as well, but we won't get into that today.
Yeah.
It is a theme that's also been covered in Korean cinema in the past, like the 2016 horror thriller The Wailing, or the 2012 comedy horror Ghost Sweepers. How would you describe the portrayal of shamanism in this film?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think shamanism is something that, like you say, has been tackled in various Korean films. And often the focus when it comes to Korean cinema, it's on politics, the history. And I think religion is somewhat overlooked. I think it's a hard topic to grasp. But you just have to go back to Kim Ki-young and some of his films that deal with shamanism, Yeodo, and various others. And there's a film Possessed as well, which you have this kind of collision between religion, Christianity on the one hand, on the one side, and then on the other you've got shamanism. So, in this film, it seems a bit different. I mean, the central kind of thematic focus is on shamanism, and for me, that's always, because it's not something I'm particularly familiar with. Of course, being in Korea, I do see it, quite, in the news or whatever. You hear people talking about it, but and you see the stands, but it's not something I'm particularly knowledgeable about. So I find it a difficult hook for me. But there is this kind of musical element to it. You got this hip hop musical element. You got a song by artist MC Meta Tiger JK.
Right.
that to me was, I'm not at all familiar with that. So
Right, so the soundtrack has got a hip hop soundtrack, you're saying?
yeah, and the visuals as well, but camera work, and all the rest of it. But it doesn't. Yeah, The Wailing, for example, has a real intensity to it. You have that kind of scene with Hwan Jung-min, and it's just incredible. This film, I don't think it doesn't have any of that, and so I think it's a difficult film to kind of well, in terms of maintaining audiences' kind of attention, for me, I found it a bit of a slog. I don't know about you, Darcy, but I admire how the director tried to do something different. The whole Hagwon thing, and I've never heard of a Hagwon or shaman Hagwon or whatever it is. It's a difficult sell, I think.
Okay, before we get to your thoughts on this, Darcy, the film, I understand, is based on a short film that attracted some attention back in 2018, right?
Yeah, it was really well received. The short film's about 40 minutes long, and in the short film, the focus is on 2 of the 3 characters, and the director decided to expand it into a feature film. He got some funding. I think he presented at the Chungmuro Musical Film Festival. And because of the musical elements and because it was a really unusual kind of approach to shamanism and to musicals, he did receive some financing to turn this into a feature film. And so he added one more character, the one played by Park Sung-eun, added a lot of subplots and twists and turns.
It's so hard to follow. I was just like, what is going on?
I think it is always a challenge when you take a short film and then stretch it out to a feature film.
Sure.
Because, the structure is in place for a short film. And then to make it longer, sometimes it makes it kind of too sparse, or there is a temptation to add in a lot. But then when you do that, it kind of affects the structure as well.
Sure. Jason found it rather a slog, as he said, and that there's too much going on. What did you think, Darcy?
Yeah, I do get the sense that the film didn't quite reach its potential. I did like the concept of it. I've in the past I've done subtitles for a couple of documentaries about shamanism, and so I've had kind of a deep dive into it.
Yeah, well, there's Manshin, right? Which
right.
is a terrific documentary by Park Chan-wook's brother. It's fantastic, and so that's a good gateway into shamanism.
Sure.
But this, I don't think it is.
Yeah, although it is interesting too, because even Manshin, which I think I agree with you, that's really well made. It struggled to reach audiences internationally. That's true. It's a very local subject, and it is tough for this to travel internationally. But in terms of originality, and there are some moments in the film that are extremely memorable and funny, and are.
It's quite dry, right? The humor. It's interesting how Korean humor tends to be a lot of slapstick. Here, I think it's a little bit drier than most Korean films. So I'll be curious to see how it lands with audiences.
Yeah.
So a film that perhaps does not manage to bring all of its elements together successfully, but an interesting release nonetheless. It's called Daemuga, and it's out now in cinemas. Now, today, Friday, is the final day of the Busan International Film Festival. Although we connected with you both last week to talk about it, it felt a bit more like a preview, as you hadn't seen many films yet, or weren't allowed to talk about them yet. So we thought we'd spend a bit more time today discussing what caught your eye this year to wrap it up. Jason, let's start with you. What did you make of this year's crop of Korean films at the festival, and did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed very much being down in Busan. I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't see as many films at the festival as I would have liked, because it was just great to be back at an event and meeting with people and crowded spaces. Not great for COVID, but yeah.
You were enjoying yourself too much.
I had a great time. And I go back over the years and I look at, the good years or the great years. And certainly for me, 2022 will be one of the great years, and so all credit to the festival for putting it on. As for the films, a bit of a mixed crop, I think. It'd be interesting to hear what Darcy says. The discoveries, as we mentioned last week, tend to be in the New Current section and the Vision section. I've seen the 2 Korean films, or there is one co-production I haven't seen. I saw the 2 Korean films in New Currents, which are quite good. There's Hail to Hell by Im Ho-jong, and I really like that film. It was It was really interesting. I love the Korean title, Jiok Manse. So yeah, that film deals with religion and cults. And there's also A Wild Rumor as well, directed by Lee Jong-hun. A lot of people like that film. Talking to people in Busan, that seemed to be the film that resonated. Really interesting tone.
It's quite long though, right?
Yeah, it's quite long. Yeah, it follows this guy who basically he does the interior for people's homes and businesses, and he's basically lodging at this house, and then one day he finds a dent on the roof of his car, and that kind of sparks off an interesting chain of events. And then so yeah, I liked the film. I wasn't as wild about it as others were. And in terms of the Vision films, there are 12 in the Vision section this year. I've seen 9 of them. Really interesting range of films. Often it's kind of one, quite hard-hitting social drama, followed by another one. This year, a few kind of experimental films and animation, and so I admire the programming in that sense. But in terms of the quality of films, I wouldn't say I saw anything really bad, but I would say I saw a few disappointments.
Right.
Including Birth, which is way too long, at 2 hours 35 minutes. It deals with this writer who gets pregnant, and we see her struggling with her process as a writer. But, being honest, I don't think that the leads were particularly good. I quite like Big Sleep by Kim Tae-hoon, feature debut. One of the best Vision films I saw, and Greenhouse as well, which is a really kind of fast-paced, crazy film. Again, it's a feature debut by Lee Sol-hee. A bit of Three Iron in there, and also Mother. A whole number of films that I saw, some experimental works which are interesting. I'll be very curious, to hear what Darcy liked.
Yeah, Darcy, what did you like?
I think my favorite film was Kongjakse, or P-Foul.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Yeah, I'd like to see it.
You'll like it, I think. I mean, the film has such energy. It's about the lead is transgender dancer, and she receives... Very topical. Yeah, and then she receives news that her father has passed away, and the relationship between them was very, very bad. Initially she says, I'm not going down for the funeral. Father, she'd grown up in this very traditional community in Jeollado, and father was involved in, kind of traditional performances and everything else. And so basically it's about her reconnecting with her very traditional roots and the people who live in the community and the discrimination there. But, it goes into serious topics, but on the other hand, it's so appealing and entertaining, and moment by moment, it's so well directed. I was watching it with a big crowd of people that I knew, and everybody absolutely loved it, and we're kind of like jumping after the film was over. Okay,
what was that called again?
P-Foul, or Kongjakse.
Yeah, that seems to be the crowd pleaser at the festival. I'd be curious to see if are they still handing out distribution awards at Busan this year. I'd be curious to see if that gets it. That sounds like a film.
Yeah, the awards will be announced.
Is it tonight?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I didn't read the whole review, but I did read a review that said it was a crowd pleaser. I was like, is this going to get the CGV Art House Award? But yeah, unfortunately I haven't seen that. That's one of the 3 films I've yet to see, but I'm very keen to watch it.
Okay, so I'm sure we'll talk more about some of these films when they get a commercial release in the next year or so. But we'll have to leave it there for today. Jason, Darcy, thank you as always for your reviews, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.
Have a great weekend.